At the start of the Vanguard zombie story, I think we all had a similar idea for how this story was going to go. You know, it was going to tell its own little story, but by the end of it, what it was really going to do was explain a couple things we were curious about that happened in the Dark Aether story during World War II. And this mainly had to do with Zykov, because Zykov was a guy who got trapped in the Dark Aether all the way back during World War II, and while he was there, he somehow became powerful enough to not only defeat Dark Aether entities, but also consume them and take their powers, which this is the explanation that we kind of got for him being the Forsaken. He kept killing more and more Dark Aether entities and consuming more and more of their powers till he became the Forsaken and then the ruler of the Dark Aether itself. But there was always something missing in this story, and what that was is how the heck did Zykov as a human become even powerful enough to even kill his first Dark Aether entity in order to even consume his power? How did he get the power to consume other things' powers? Like, these are some pretty important questions that I think we all expected to be answered. But now that we have the conclusion of this story with the Archon, we never got any answers to that, or heck, we didn't even get any tie-ins to the story. Not even just the thing I was curious about. There's literally nothing. Well, to be fair, there is something. The only connection we do have between the stories is the mention of End Station and their scientists, which is something, I guess. But this gets me just kind of overly confused by this whole thing, because I really tried to find some connections here. I was really thinking like, okay, there wasn't an ending cutscene, so maybe we have to look a little bit further into this explanation of Zykov. Maybe it's some little hints they left here and there. And the big one that I thought that was the big hint was that when we defeated Cortifex, he just kind of fell down, and maybe Zykov somehow came across the body of Cortifex, and when he did, he was able to somehow extract his old powers and use it for himself. And maybe that's how Zykov got his powers, because I think I remember a document talking about Zykov coming upon a dead Dark Aether entity, but at the time we weren't calling them Dark Aether entities, we were calling them like old ones or stuff like that. And sure enough, I went and looked through all the documents till I found this one, and there was something that seemed like it was this, and I thought, oh, this is the connection we've been looking for. This explains Zykovs Powers. And sure enough, when I started reading it, it said, I found one of the big ones dead today. Had the impression they left each other alone, but it was clear from the wounds it was a fight amongst themselves. And, you know, he's definitely talking about the Dark Aether entities. A couple things seem a little inconsistent, like he calls him one of the big ones, but when we killed Cortifex, he kind of shrunk, which, I don't know, maybe he's still a little bit big, I don't know. And then the other thing is, like, you could tell it was a fight from the other ones because of the wounds when we shot at him with guns, which he probably should realize, but hey, maybe that was just an overlooked thing. But then the problem is the document still continues even after that, and it says, there's talk here that one of the overlords is hunting the rest. Sounds like crazy talk, especially because some of them now worship the giants, but I have seen enough to believe it. And after reading this, I think it just kind of destroys everything, because there's no way he's talking about him stumbling upon Cortifex's corpse. And the reason for this is because he's talking about an overlord going around killing all the other overlords. And the thing is that he's talking about himself. He's talking about him as the Forsaken going around killing all the other Dark Aether entities, because that's what he did. We already know that's what he did, and this is what he's talking about. And you may question, well, why is he talking about it like it's not himself? Well, that's how he talked about it in all his documents, because they weren't trying to reveal he was the Forsaken. I mean, that was a twist, remember? And what really sucks is that this was the only thing I was really banking on that could really tie in these two stories, because I literally went through every single Zykov document and every single Zykov radio, and there was nothing I could even try to imagine a way to connect them, and it just is unfortunate. And maybe that theory still is true. Maybe secretly out there in the headcanon of the writers, it's true that Zykov actually gained power to even defeat Dark Aether entities by coming across the dead body of Cortifex and somehow absorbing that power. Or maybe it was the construct or had something to do with that. But at this point, we just don't have any evidence for that. We don't have any direct ties to these stories. And the old explanation for how Zykov became powerful enough to even fight Dark Aether entities is still just as likely, which was just simply him staying in the Dark Aether for so long that he just became powerful, which is not really great, because we were hoping that it would be something more, which is just overall unfortunate. And at this point, it just kind of gets me a little bit concerned with the Vanguard Zombies story, and it keeps reminding me of the fact that the Vanguard Zombie story's lead writer is not the same lead writer for the regular Dark Aether story and the main Treyarch zombie games writer, because as we all know, the lead writer for zombies normally is Craig Hewson, and Craig Hewson is not working on this game. He's not writing this story. It's someone else entirely, and this just makes me think like, wait, maybe this story isn't actually going to be an important thing in the future of the Dark Aether story. Even though I've made this video of things that I think will tie in the future with the Dark Aether entities, the constructs, or something like that, but I don't know if that's going to be the case, because to me, you just don't tell a prequel and not tie it into the sequel, right? That's just not something you do. And this just gives me the vibes that they're just going to let this story just exist on its own. They'll say, sure, it's connected to the rest of the Dark Aether, but it really doesn't matter, which really is unfortunate, because it would make this story feel a little bit less significant. Don't get me wrong, it's fine to have a self-contained story to Vanguard Zombies and for it to never really see the light of day again, but it just is unfortunate to me, because to me the zombie storyline is normally something that is super convoluted and things that you have to tie together with a little piece of intel here and there to try to figure out the overall thing, but I don't think that is what is happening here. Maybe one day in the future Craig Hewson will just find a way to tie this in and it will be tied in a proper way, but right now these two stories in the Dark Aether story really just feel like two independent stories of each other, which is just something I didn't expect. Regardless though, that's going to wrap it up for me. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this whole situation. Do you guys agree with me and think that the Vanguard zombie story is probably just going to be its own thing, is not really going to tie into anything, or do you disagree with me? Maybe you have some evidence to show otherwise, that the Vanguard zombie story is actually going to be important in one way or another in the future. I'd love to hear all your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. Regardless though, that's going to wrap it up for me. If you guys did enjoy the video, definitely do all the normal YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, bell, share, and all that great stuff, but I'm going to go, and I'll catch you guys next stream, video, or whatever the heck it may be, and laters guys.